Welcome to Inspired Sundays for the weekend of July 3rd through the 5th. You know, this weekend marks the 244th Independence Day in American history. It was our country's declaration that we are willing to make sacrifices in order to see a better future. And I kind of feel right now we're in a time where we're all making sacrifices in hope that it leads to a better future. And one way we can help each other get through these sacrifices is to continue to reach out and pour into others. There's an Indian spiritual master named Shirdi Sai Baba that said this: love one another and help others rise to the higher levels simply by pouring out love. Love is infectious and the greatest healing energy. Our message this week comes to us from Pastor Stephen Furtick, and he talks to us about when we pour out our spiritual gifts, it actually creates more. More for others and more for ourselves.
It is the seemingly insignificant insecurities that make you feel like I'm not a real man, I'm not a real mom. Now I'm yelling at my daughter just like my mom yelled at me, and I'm just repeating the cycle, and it causes you to despise your oil. And that's exactly what the enemy wants, is to use a small little thing to get you to miss your miracle. Because your miracle is hidden in what you've been overlooking. And the reason you've been overlooking it is because it seems so small to you. And the reason it seems small to you is because you are insecure about what you're not. So he'll work on you until you call it nothing. What do you have to be grateful for? Nothing. Really, nothing? What are you good at? Nothing? We went around the table the other day and I asked a group of people, what are you really great at? And it took us all a long time to answer. I wonder why that is. Because we're so humble? Or because the enemy has messed with us so much now, because we're all on the verge of 40 and we've gotten so familiar with our deficiency. When you've lived in a deficit for a long time, it overshadows the oil that you do have. He wants you to despise your oil. He wants you to despise the season of life that you're in. He wants you to be thinking about how much time you used to have back before, or how much time you're gonna have when. Meanwhile, the question of the prophet is not, what do you wish you had in your house? What do you have left? Because that's what God is going to bless. What you have left. God is going to bless what he gave you. You are his chosen vessel. And the oil you have is the oil you need. And the strengths you have are the strengths you need. And the experiences that you've had are the experiences that you need. But notice this, the oil only flows when it is poured. You can pray over it, you can cry over it, you can wish for it, but until you pour it, it will stay one small jar. If the enemy can't take your oil, he will try to get you to stop pouring. And some of you have stopped pouring. You got your heart broken. You poured your love into your last relationship and it didn't work out, and they left you and they hurt you and they turned away from you. So you stop pouring, and when you stop pouring, it stops flowing. You used to encourage people and then you got discouraged and you stopped encouraging. But God told me to tell you, keep on pouring, because the more you pour, the more it's gonna flow. I feel like preaching till somebody prays, until somebody pours out the praise you've got. Now, we tend to think, I'll pour more when I get more. But the way it works in the order of God is it becomes more as it is poured. Isn't it just like God to command you to pour something that you don't feel like you have enough of. Strange instruction. I don't have much poured out. It's the weirdest strategy in the world, but I'm gonna tell you, I think this stuff works. I think as you pour it out, it becomes more. Really, I'm convinced of it. Because I tried that thing where you feel sorry for yourself when you're discouraged. I tried the other thing where I encouraged somebody else when I felt discouraged. The first one took me deeper into my deficit and my discouragement. The second one is the weirdest thing because I didn't feel like I had it to give. I wanted somebody to encourage me. And bitterness will keep you from pouring what you have while you wait for what you want. And so then you stay poor. You stay frustrated. You stay stuck. You stay in bitterness. I wonder, was the woman a little disappointed that the prophet told her to pour something? It's frustrating when you have to pour into someone else when you really wish someone would pour into you. Yet, the more you pour, the more it flows. I'm just telling you what to do the next time. I know you haven't had any struggles in the last 7 years, but in case you go through something this year, the more you pour, the more it flows. The more you pour, the more it flows. Y'all getting it over here? And so the devil's so crafty that he will put you in a state where you'll tell yourself, nobody appreciates me, so you'll stop giving yourself. And it will reinforce that self-fulfilling prophecy. Nobody appreciates me. They won't appreciate you because you'll stop pouring and they'll no longer have anything to appreciate about you. That's why Holly said the other day, they don't even care what I cook. She's talking about the kids. She said they only want the noodles. She made this meal. And if you're considering marrying, in this age that we live in right now, there's a lot of things that can attract you to a person. I appreciate many qualities about my wife. I appreciate the fact that she has excelled to the point where she now, can I tell y'all something? She grows her own Swiss chard. Do you know how bougie that is? So now, here's some homegrown Swiss chard and some chicken. And when the kids went back for seconds, she said, they don't care about the chicken. They don't care about the homegrown Swiss chard. They just want the noodles. That $1.29 box of noodles. They would be happy with just the noodles. I said, girl, I know exactly how you feel. I feel that way sometimes when I'm preaching. The devil will tell me that, they really don't care. They're not going to remember this sermon. It's the craziest thing how I get into self-pity. And it's like, they don't appreciate my Swiss chard, my scriptural Swiss chard, my biblical chicken. But I looked at her, I said, girl, if you don't cook it for anybody else, keep cooking the chicken for me. It's not even about those little brats. Let them eat the noodles. Give me the chicken. I want the Swiss chard. Now, you gotta have this sense in your life, servant of God, that I'm not doing it for them. Because sometimes you will pour into people and they won't say a word, but they're not your source. I said they're not your source. I might be pouring into people, but I'm pouring for the Lord. So I can keep pouring if you appreciate me. I can keep pouring if you don't. I can keep pouring if you stay. I can keep pouring if you walk out. Who am I helping make some noise? Some Swiss chard preaching. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that God kept pouring into me when I seemed unprofitable. And so I got to keep pouring. It said that she kept pouring. I wonder how stupid she felt when she first started pouring. Now, once it starts working, it was probably kind of fun. And I will point out one thing that I thought was kind of funny. We were talking about this, JJ, weren't we? How Elisha told her in verse 3, give me the verse, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. And then in verse 5 it says, she left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her. She made her kids go to the neighbors. You heard what the man said. But she did one more thing I want to point out, and it's what enabled her to pour. She shut the doors. And that's such an important detail in this text, because it is what you pour out in private when no one is looking. And a lot of us are so busy praying for more oil, more opportunity, more. And God says, pour. And the more you pour, the more it flows. You're never going to pour out what you have while you're so busy consulting what everybody else has. You'd be like the woman. You'd be like the woman who came in and poured out that expensive fragrance on the feet of Jesus, and all the men around called it a waste, and she called it worship. Amen. Because you're always gonna feel like it's not enough. And even if you feel like it is enough, you feel like it doesn't matter. Have you had a day like that in the last 7 where you felt like this doesn't even matter? Shut the door and keep pouring. In fact, sometimes the best thing to do is shut your mouth and keep pouring. And keep pouring. Because the oil only became more when it was in motion. And the oil only flowed when the vessels were ready. I don't think this message is really about the oil at all. I think it's about the vessels. Because when Elisha told her to go around to her neighbors, he gave her a very specific type of vessel to request. He said, make sure they're empty. Make sure they're empty. God can't fill what's already full. That's why it's so important that you pour out your pride. That's why it's so important that we pour out our own opinions and come before the Lord empty. Because listen, when the vessels are ready, the oil will flow.
Thank you for joining us for this week's Inspired Sunday message. You know, I love the challenge that Pastor Stephen Furtick gave us on pouring out our gifts, love, and compassion to others. Because when we do, it creates more. You know, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall once said this: none of us got where we are solely by pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. We got here because somebody, a parent, a teacher, an Ivy League crony, or maybe a few nuns, bent down and helped us pick up our boots. We at the Trilogy Foundation want to give a huge shout out to all our caregivers who pour out your love and compassion each and every day to our residents. You are truly the heart and soul of our servant leader-based culture. We hope each of you have a wonderful Independence Day weekend, and I pray you stay safe and healthy, and God bless.